Good evening, everyone. For Telesur English, I'm Sarah Begum in Caracas, Venezuela. We start tonight in Venezuela. That is where the government is implementing new rules to overcome food shortages due to the hoarding and economic war of the opposition. President Maduro says a wealthy elite and opposition activists encouraged by Washington and foreign media are seeking an economic coup via hoarding and price gouging. The Venezuelan people are overall welcoming the moves to stop hoarding and selling subsidized food in neighboring Colombia.
I think it's great because it prevents people from taking advantage, like up to 10 people coming to buy in order to resell afterwards.
In Peru, police fired tear gas to break up about 5,000 protesters on Thursday night. The demonstrators are angry about a new labour law that will take away some employment benefits for young people. The government says that will make them more attractive to companies and create more jobs in that age group. But protesters in Lima disagree.
Mainly, we want the authorities to back down. We want this law to go to Congress to be evaluated and repealed. And if they want, they should open the dialogue with the young people. So there will be a social dialogue in which all the legitimate wishes of the people can be expressed, so that we can have a good law.
Our correspondent in Lima, Rael Mora, has more on the Peru protests.
On Thursday, police continued to use excessive force to disperse the fourth round of protests against the new youth labor law, which was approved by the Peruvian Congress in mid-December. The law reduced a series of work benefits for youth, including salaries, vacation days, bonuses for dependents, severance, and occupational and life insurance. Students, political parties, cultural groups, labor unions, and collectives participated in Thursday's demonstrations, as well as groups from 14 regions of Lima, which the protesters call zones. The students have created the zones as a way to decentralize decision-making, facilitating organizing and incorporating individuals who have no political background.
We're young people who are against this law. We decided to get organized to launch what we call the zones. Why? Because we believe that we can collaborate with our point of view to make this work a better way and also to democratize the spaces to make decisions.
A new poll shows that less than 20% of Peruvians support the youth labor law, and there are several proposals to repeal it in Congress, which will be debating the issue at the end of January. In the meantime, demonstrators are becoming increasingly politicized, with organizers now claiming that they will continue mobilizing even if the law in question is repealed. Thursday's protest turned violent. A large police force blocked the protests from reaching Congress. After a few demonstrators threw their signs at them, officers responded with tear gas and hitting demonstrators indiscriminately. Many protesters answered by throwing rocks. Dozens were arrested, including at least one journalist. Smaller demonstrations took place in other cities around Peru. Reporting from Lima, Peru for Telesur, Rael Mora.
Thanks to Rael. Moving to Mexico, violence continues in the Michoacan state. The government armed local farmers to help fight the cartels. But in December, when the authorities wanted to disarm this so-called rural police in the southwest, everything went sour. The militia refused to give up their weapons and turned on the security forces. Locals claim it is self-protection.
People are starting to see that the government itself is attacking civilians, innocent people. People are getting furious. We are furious. And now it's everyone against everyone.
Staying in Mexico, the police have captured a gang member who is suspected to be involved in the kidnapping of the 43 Ayotzinapa students. For more, we go to Clayton Con.
Late Thursday night, a police and military operation in the Mexican state of Morelos detained Felipe Rodriguez, known as El Cepillo, who was a member of the organized crime group Guerreros Unidos, the group that is suspected behind the disappearance and potentially mass murder of the 43 Ayotzinapa students. Rodriguez is considered a close associate of another Guerreros Unidos member, Gildardo Lopez, or El Gil, considered to be the man who received the students by Iguala Guerrero police on September 26. Lopez remains a fugitive. Up until now, more than 90 people have been detained in connection to the Ayotzinapa case, including police from the communities of Iguala and Cacula, the former mayor of Iguala, Jose Luis Abarca, and his wife Maria de los Angeles Pineda. However, one fugitive remains at large, Felipe Flores, who was the former police chief of Iguala and is suspected of having close ties with the organized crime group Guerreros Unidos. This is Clayton Khan reporting for Telesur, here in Mexico City.
Thanks to Clayton. The United Nations and El Salvador have come to an agreement to implement a plan to combat insecurity and inequality in Central America. As part of the official visit of the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, to El Salvador, he met with President Sanchez Cerén. They mutually agreed on human rights and security. In Colombia, President Juan Manuel Santos said that the country is going to implement energy rationing as a consequence of the El Niño and the drought.
Las represas que hoy están en un nivel suficiente para que tengamos los colombianos la tranquilidad de que a pesar de fenómenos como el del Niño no vamos.
The President of the United States, Barack Obama, said Europe must do better to integrate its Muslim community. As part of his meeting with British Prime Minister David Cameron at the White House, he said that Europe should not respond with force. In the wake of last week's terrorist attacks, he added that integration problems was not apparent in all of Europe.
There are parts of Europe in which that's not the case, and that's probably the greatest danger that Europe faces, which is why as they respond, as they work with us to respond to these circumstances, it's important for Europe not to simply respond with a hammer and law enforcement.
The World Health Organization reports the healthcare system in eastern Ukraine's conflict-ridden Donbas region is collapsing. The WHO says more than 5 million people affected by the humanitarian crisis in areas under the control of pro-Russian militants fighting for a separate state are in dire need of healthcare services.
Ukraine is faced with huge challenges and the humanitarian situation that needs much more support than we can imagine outside of Ukraine. The system, the health system that was already not functioning well or even not functioning in some parts is now challenged with huge burden of internally displaced people that are moving from place to place, that are not served in their place of residence, the temporary residence.
Russian President Vladimir Putin held an emergency meeting with the Nations Security Council in Moscow, addressing the new wave of violence in eastern Ukraine. The Security Council discussed the possibility of talks under the Normandy format involving Russia, Germany, France and Ukraine. They are aiming to de-escalate the conflict by ensuring that the Minsk agreements reached in September last year are observed by both sides. Last year was the hottest in modern history, according to a report by a US government scientist that found global warming reached a new and concerning level in 2014. The average for sea and land surface temperatures was the highest among all years since record keeping began in 1880, said the report by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. In Palestine, public employees have finally been paid by the government after 3 months. For more, we go to Noor Harazin.
After almost 3 months of waiting, finally the employees in the Gaza Strip who are working in the Hamas government have got paid 1,000 shekels, which is less than $260. And despite the fact that this is a small amount of money for 3 months of hard work, the employees expressed happiness over the transferring of this money, hoping that the Palestinian Unity government will continue taking responsibility responsibility towards the residents of Gaza. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, clashes continue for almost 5 days in a row. Now, injuries have been reported in several protests around the West Bank.
And to end, in Paris, friends and colleagues paid tribute to the editor-in-chief of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, Stéphane Charbonnier. The anthem and the Internationale, as well as the Pogues classic Dirty Old Town, was the background to the arrival of the coffin of Charles, as he was known. There were a raised fist of rebellion at the service. The remaining staff of Charlie Hebdo vowed to continue on in defiance of terrorism and standing up for French Republican values. More on these and other stories on our website, telesortv.net/English. For Telesor English, I'm Sarah Begum. Enjoy the weekend.